Sometimes my ADHD and my OCPD try to work together to take me out. Okay, it's the OCPD coach Shannon Williams here, and I actually just threw a retro intro on for you all with the okay. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if I like it or not. But I wanted to welcome you all to my YouTube channel. So I'm an individual that has OCPD, ADHD, and OCD. I want to talk a little bit more about my diagnosis and really just get into the nitty gritty about what OCPD and ADHD together looks like in life. Additionally, I want to talk about how you can use OCPD and ADHD in conjunction to get great results out of your life. Let's go. So just a very brief history of my diagnosis. It was sometime early last year where I started to realize something was off. I didn't like spending money on myself. I didn't want my wife buying me gifts for Father's Day. I just was like, hey, give me the money. I'll pay bills if you wanted to do that instead. I couldn't finish projects. It was really hard for me to work with people and delegate. I just always thought I could do the job better, or I was unclear to them. It was so many different things. So I had all the flags, the obsession with rules. People not using blinkers was something that really got to me when I started driving. So I knew something was up. I had no idea what OCPD was, never heard of it. But I started reaching out to a therapist after my wife and I had a discussion about Father's Day and her not getting me a gift because I wouldn't let her. And it was becoming an issue now in my relationship. So what I actually wound up doing was reaching out to a therapist and telling her a little bit about my issues. She suspected it was OCD. So I ran with that train. Okay, maybe I have OCD and I'm just learning more about it. But then I come across a video of the Healthy Gamer GG. Shout out to that channel. I love that channel. Been watching it for years. But he actually made a video, and in the video he said OCD versus OCPD. That was the first time I ever heard the term OCPD in my life. And I watched that video and instantly realized, wait, no, I have OCPD. Every single thing they listed, I dealt with. That was my self-diagnosis. But I did want to still go to therapy and get officially looked at and confirmed that it was the case. So I went to therapy and found an amazing therapist, and I still actually work with my therapist. Also, she's the one who recommended I get into coaching. It was her idea for this specifically. But I worked with my therapist, and when I was working with my therapist, she confirmed that I had OCPD, and she also brought up ADHD. And that was something I never thought about, was ADHD. Now, the ADHD side came from the different traits that I had, and I'll talk a little bit more about those traits. But she pointed it out. She led me to learning about ADHD. I went home and was like, oh my God. This is the other half of the puzzle. So it's always been, for myself, it's always been where I've known certain things about myself, but couldn't put it into words, couldn't back it up with logic, couldn't really piece everything together. For instance, confidence. I typically pride myself on being a confident individual in my work ethic, in my ability, in favor, like these different things that I have confidence in. But when I put things out, I never promote them. I hardly ever tell people about them. I'm very hush-hush, and if I don't make a single dime, I'm fine. I just don't like being criticized. I don't like the scrutiny, whatever it is. Like these have been things where I've never understood. Or I'm in art class and I'm trying to recreate an image for the assignment, and I'm taking 2 weeks to get every single dot accurate because I want it to be perfect representation. And everybody else is done with the warm-up because that's what it basically is. But it's a warm-up and they're done in the week. And I just could not understand. I just never could finish it. Even back when I was younger, I would play wrestling games and I would create like 50 people, create arenas and all these different things. And I would say, save is coming, or the uploads are coming. And I would have a hard time pushing the entire project out. So I never understood it. Delegation was another thing. I'm a different type of leader, and I'm much better at leadership now. But especially back then, I was not very clear on what I wanted. I didn't know what to ask people for, or how to put it into words. I thought everybody thought like me and they would understand where I was going. It was just a bunch of different things. The puzzle pieces, I just could not understand it. So when my therapist recommended that I look into ADHD, and I already got that OCPD confirmed, everything about me just made sense. And I'm not just saying that these disorders define me, but it explained a lot of my ways and a lot of my brain, how it worked. It really felt good. It was empowering. I was even in the truck and I let out just like a primal yell, like it was just all of my life was making sense. Just in that one moment, just everything made sense. When I say one moment, this is like weeks, but weeks and days of me researching and finding things out. But that was for me a moment, like it was a blur. So all of this stuff to say, when I got the diagnosis, everything made more sense, and I definitely have ADHD and OCPD. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the ADHD side. So one of the big things that I deal with the ADHD is time blindness. I have a bad record of assuming things will be done much sooner than they realistically should be or could be done. An example, when I first started learning game development, 2015, I wanted to make my own version of Grand Theft Auto. Like full city, but it was gonna be based in Detroit. I said that this would take 3 months to build. And I never wound up even pursuing the project, but just even me thinking that alone was absurd. I thought, it is normal, but now that I found out I had ADHD, it made so much sense. This is an actual thing. Time blindness is an actual symptom of ADHD. I was like, oh, that's why I'm always so bad at estimating. So now, try not to estimate too much. I try to really break down all of the required elements first before I pursue anything or get started on something. The other thing, I would quit sports, I would quit projects. Every single year in high school, I played something different. So 9th grade, I did cross country and baseball. 10th grade, I did football. 11th grade, I was a drum major. And 12th grade, I did nothing. So all of these years, I did something completely different. And all of that, is this blurry? You know, I'm just not realizing, and I apologize, that my autofocus was looking at my hands instead of my face. So I'm hoping that's not throwing you all off. But yeah, I would do all these different things. I would be interested in one thing and jump from one thing to the next. And this happened a lot. So as I just got older, I started having this quitter mentality where it just seemed like I quit everything, or I never finished anything, or never saw anything through. But when I found out I had ADHD and OCPD, it lifted that off my shoulders, and I was able to say, it's not that you're a quitter. It's that your brain is no longer stimulated with this. And it's part of like your brain's makeup now. That's just what it is. So now I find ways to keep my brain stimulated, or I take breaks, but I have that guilt that's really coming off of me now, especially this year. I'm getting much better with it. So another thing is the excitement level. I can get the same level of excitement for 2 projects based off of what I'm interested in the time. And it's really helped me. The ADHD has helped me because I've been able to learn so many things. I've just been able to get interested in it. Like game development, that's how I learned. I wanted to make a game, I got hyper-focused and taught myself a lot of elements of game development in 2 months over a summer, and then got a job to do games. So it's really useful to have that because I can use it to my advantage. The hyper-focus can also be a negative. I've had times, even as recent as the past few days, where I've spent way too much time hyper-focused on something, where I don't eat, not sleeping, I'm just focused on something specific. So it has its negatives, so just keep that in mind. With ADHD, you have to make sure you have a healthy balance with it. Another thing was too many thoughts in my head. It was always frantic. Even if I'm in conversation, it's hard for me to follow a conversation if I don't know where we're going. If I know where we're going, I can follow it better. But if somebody is just rambling, it's very hard for me to know what to focus on. And then my brain just goes crazy, just thinking about everything that I might be messing up or missing out on, or am I a bad person because I'm not really paying attention? Like all these things that come with a frantic brain. And last thing I put on here is my lack of patience. Very impatient. If I have an idea for something, I want to drop everything and work on it now. I don't want to go to work on whatever I need to work on at work. I want to call off and instead work on whatever I have in my brain right now. It's just something that happens. It's happened my entire life, so I've just been dealing with it. So that's a little bit about the ADHD side. Now let's pivot over to the OCPD side a little bit. So first thing I put on here is perfectionism. I've always wanted to be the best of the best, or it just seemed like I was wasting my time doing something, which leads me to just, it works together with the ADHD, I can just drop it. But yeah, another thing is it motivates competition, the perfectionism, because I want to be the best, but it also can impact your self-esteem. If you're not the best, what does that feel like to not be the best? So that's just something to keep in mind. Another thing is the strictness to processes and rules. So I love structure. If you don't have structure, if you're disobeying the law or whatever it is, whatever the rules may be, if it's saying don't sit on a rail and you sit on the rail, like stuff like that really bothers me. And it always has. I've always been like, no, just listen to the rules. They're there for a reason. Like, just crazy. But yeah, that's one of the things that was taught to the OCPD. And sucking and delegating. I've always had a hard time communicating what I needed done or liking what I would have done. That would also be a thing where somebody would do something and it wouldn't be up to par for what I wanted. So I would go and edit it or do it myself. Workaholism, which again is one of those things where it's a fine line. You are a really great worker, you're a really hard worker, but sometimes you overwork yourself and you start to lose value in life and really understand what matters and find peace and happiness in life. So workaholism is a fine line you need to balance. That's a little bit about the OCPD side, just a little bit. Another thing is the hoarding and all that stuff, but I'm just talking about these specific topics right now. So I want to talk a little bit about how they work together against me. So I just listed a few things. Number one, projects would take long because I would want this masterpiece and then I would lose interest. I wanted to make a wrestling game back in 2015 that was an independent wrestling game. It was gonna have all the bells and whistles and be better than Day of Reckoning and Here Comes the Pain in every single wrestling game. And it was taking me so long to build this because I was getting caught up in all of the tiny details. And then my ADHD started kicking in and I started having desires to work on other projects because this was taking too long. I wasn't really seeing the vision that I had in my head. And then I just eventually lost interest and pivoted to something else. So it was the OCPD of me trying to make this amazing beast of a project and getting caught up in the details. And then the ADHD of me just saying, okay, I've been working on this for too long, it's too lengthy, I need to just stop. So that's something. Another thing is the guilt of stopping things. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the guilt of stopping things because of whatever the reason is something that I'm starting to get better with, but I've struggled with my whole life, even like with college. It made me go into things with a negative mindset of this is not gonna work, I'm not gonna finish it, I'm not gonna release it, or I'm not gonna market it. And it really, really impacted me. So now I'm getting better with that. I'm starting to be more open with my projects. I mark out my game I released in 2021, I think it was, 2021. That game was the first game where I built it and I put it out there and said, hey, y'all play my game. And it was the best experience because I got hands-on feedback and they were finding bugs and all these different things. And I realized after that, I released the game. I actually wanted to release it because I was continuing to put the game out and just get feedback. So that's another thing to just keep in mind is that the guilt of stopping things is not something that you want to keep going. But yeah, that was a big one. Just that guilt of stopping things has really, really made it where I've lacked confidence in doing a lot of things in life. So I'm gonna tell you something positive now. Let's talk about how we can use them together. But before I do that, I wanna make sure that you all know if you wanna get any of my documents or resources, head over to the OCPDcoach.com/resources. I've got so many document templates you can use. These are documents I've created specifically for clients and used specifically with clients. So yeah, make sure you check it out. That's the OCPDcoach.com/resources. So now let's talk about using them together. So things that I've become really interested in can actually become the center of my attention, which is something that it's actually a superpower for me sometimes because I can pivot all of the energy I had in one element of my life and move it all over to a different thing and be just as invested as long as the interest is there or it's novel, it's something new. An example of this would be me working on learning how to play the piano and then me learning how to do the staircase for my floors. I had the same level of energy devoted to both. It was when I was learning how to play the piano, I picked a song, I was doing it every night, I was having fun. When I was doing the stairs, I researched how to do it, I was buying all the supplies, I was knocking it out. So I have that level of energy and motivation that I can take everywhere. It's so contagious sometimes as well because you just get on a roll. And another thing that I mentioned with this though was the discipline. And the discipline is much easier when you have processes and structures. So my OCPD side loves to build and be involved or follow structures and patterns and rules. So I actually do this. I create rules and structures and processes on my side, then use these for different things I want to do in life. I've done it for games. I've done it even for just life activities. Something as simple as playing a video game or going for a walk. I can make a task for that. So even if the ADHD part of my brain gets about doing this, once I go into Jira or my task management software, I can see that I have a task there. So they work together because it just keeps me in check. Final thing I actually put on here is management and documentation. So documentation is a huge thing. When I have so many ideas, I always want to jump from one idea to the next. And I tend to realize now that the idea might not be as great as I thought it was. So what I wound up doing is spending a lot of time or energy or money on an idea, and then 2 months later, I'm like, oh, this idea sucks, or it wasn't fleshed out enough. It's not possible, it's not, whatever it is. So what I actually do is, when I have new ideas, the first thing I do is create myself a Jira ticket that says document proof of concept or design document for a new idea. And then I go into Confluence, which is attached to, and I document everything about the idea and I let it sit. And I don't typically do work on it in that moment unless it's just experimental work, but I typically don't do work on it in that moment. Then weeks later, I'll see if it's still as important or still something that I have a desire to work on. And if it is, I pull it in. If it's not, I just push it out. And I've done this with multiple projects since I've learned I had ADHD and OCPD. There've been so many projects where I've had these ideas like, oh, this could be a great project concept. And then when I write it out and give it a week, I'm like, not really. Like the concept I'm working on right now is better. So that is something that I actually recommend you take advantage of. Again, if you need any of my resources, make sure you head over to the OCPDcoach.com. If you're trying to hit different goals in life, but you're struggling, I might be able to help you. I've recently been able to help clients do things in their life that have not only brought them productivity as far as marking things off of their task list, but also improve their quality of life, where their relationships have improved. And this was something I'm really excited to share, but the clients that I worked with, 2 of the clients have been in relationships, and they both come back and said that their partner has really just raved about the changes that they have been making. Because some of these changes you don't even notice that they need to be made, such as the delegation issues, the rigidity, like these OCPD things we have. Well, ADHD and OCPD, with them working together, a lot of times you might be able to improve your relationship by just getting these things in check. I know I went on a little tangent there, but if this is ever something you're interested in doing, if you want to improve relationships, if you want to improve your work-life balance, if you want to get specific tasks done, if you have something you've wanted to do for so long and been putting it off and don't know where to start, I'm your guy. Reach out to me at the OCPDcoach.com. There's a button on there where you can actually fill out a form. I'll reach out, we'll do a consultation, and then after that, you might even get some free coaching. So thank you for watching. If you like this content, make sure you subscribe. If you want to see more things or if you have comments, make sure you comment on this. Also, a specific comment. If you're somebody who has ADHD and OCPD, let me know in the comments. Tell me a little bit about how you found out you had them. And then also, what are some struggles that you've dealt with since you found out you've had them? Again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great one and continue to fight for your life.